Today on Dr. Phil.
A couple accused of holding their 13 children captive.
Secrets of the mom's past.
We all went through sexual molestation.
The exclusive interviews.
You say you were shocked.
I know my sister was strange, but never anything like this. None of them really were allowed to come out of the room without permission. She would call them down one at a time. They would make eye contact, and then she would tell her, okay, you can eat.
When you went to check it out, what did you find?
It was so nasty inside. Animal cages, bedrooms set up like barracks.
Padlocks on the refrigerator?
Ropes on the beds.
Plus, Cleveland House of Horrors kidnapped survivor Michelle Knight.
What is going through their minds right now?
They're scared. They're alone.
Stories from inside the home police called a torture chamber for 13 children.
Today, inside what some are calling the California House of Horrors, where 13 children were allegedly starved, tortured, and chained to their beds by their parents. On the outside, David and Louise Turpin's house looked like any other. But inside, authorities claim it was a nightmare. The Turpin children, with their bowl haircuts and matching clothes, were allegedly held captive and only allowed to move around their house in the darkness of night. On the rare occasion neighbors saw them, they likened their pale, frightened, and thin appearances to vampires and twilight children. Police said when they arrived, Louise Turpin seemed perplexed as to why they were there, even though on the other side of the door, 13 children as young as 2 and as old as 29 were allegedly being held prisoner by their own parents.
Developing news tonight, 2 parents under arrest after a horrific discovery.
A married couple near Los Angeles is in jail, accused of holding their 13 children captive.
This is the alleged House of Horrors. The parents of the male suspects, they say that the mom and dad who were arrested are deeply religious people who reportedly felt called by God to have so many children.
Deputies responded to the home early Sunday morning after a slightly emaciated 17-year-old girl who appeared to be only 10 managed to escape and call 911. She told police her 12 brothers and sisters, ranging in age from 2 to 29, were being held captive inside by her parents.
Investigators say they found deplorable conditions inside and several of the children were shackled.
They allege the children were not allowed to use the bathroom, take more than one shower a year, or wash their hands above the wrists. They were fed very little, leaving them severely malnourished.
This is severe emotional, physical abuse. This is depraved conduct.
Neighbors say the family kept to themselves and they had no clue 13 children were living inside the home.
13 kids living next door. I can't believe it.
Over their more than 30 years of marriage, David and Louise renewed their vows 3 times in Las Vegas.
David and Louise, I now pronounce that the 2 of you still will be husband and wife.
These pictures from Facebook paint a picture of a happy family, but deputies say they were anything but.
Prosecutors say in addition to the beatings, the children were also restrained with ropes.
These defendants eventually began using chains and padlocks to chain up the victims to their beds.
David and Louise Turpin are facing 37 felony counts of torture, false imprisonment, and child abuse. Their attorney entered not guilty pleas on their behalf. The couple were shackled with chains, the same type of restraints that the district attorney says they used on their own children for weeks or months at a time.
If the parents are convicted, they could face 94 years in prison.
They failed their kids. That's what happened. The 2 parents, they failed their kids.
Well, today we're going to begin to search for answers as we unpack what we know about the Turpins' life. Are there clues that lie in their past? Well, we're going to speak to Louise's sister and their neighbors who knew who they were. Some of Louise's siblings spoke out recently, shedding a bit of light on just who this mother was and how she ended up charged with some of the most heinous crimes against children ever reported.
The last time that I talked to Louise was January 10th. I was wanting to plan a trip in June. She told us she didn't want us to get a motel, that we could stay at the house, and They wanted to buy a school bus and to have another kid, and they wanted to make it 14.
Meanwhile, Louise Turpin's sister, Teresa, is revealing how truly bizarre the marriage is.
She told me that her and David had met a man online from Huntsville, Alabama, and that they were on their way there to meet him, and that she was going to sleep with him, and that David was okay with that. All I know is that, because I told her I thought it was a mistake, that this was not, and all that I know is that it did happen. She went to Huntsville, Alabama. David dropped her off. She met this man at a motel, slept with him. And what makes it even worse and even weirder is that exactly 1 year to the date of the anniversary that she did that, David, she called me and thought it was funny that David was taking her back to the exact same hotel room, the exact same hotel, everything, the exact same bed that she slept with this man in, so that David could sleep with her in the same bed.
Well, joining us now is Louise Turpin's sister, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. I mean, this can't be fun for you to talk about. No. First off, how did you find out about it? Was it on television? Did someone call you?
Somebody tagged me on Facebook, the news, and my heart dropped, and my reaction, I was shocked. My husband thought somebody had died. That was my reaction. I just fell apart. And then not even 5 minutes later, I had a news reporter calling me and wanting to interview me. And it began like that. So
you say you were shocked. This was something that you couldn't believe about your sister?
I know my sister was strange, but never anything like this, no.
Describe strange for me.
Louise, when she left home, she wanted to put everything behind her. She wanted to put, including the family, because of our history of abuse as children. Mm-hmm. So Louise was very distant, so to me that's strange, that she would just not want to talk to her parents or siblings, nobody. And then a lot of strange activity went on. She started partying in her 40s. She started acting like a teenager and called bragging about having sex with another man other than her husband. He knew about it. She started blocking us out of her life. She had blocked me and one of my other siblings off of Facebook. I haven't talked to her on the phone for 2 years.
You said growing up that you all went through the same thing. Where did you guys grow up?
We were born and raised in Princeton, West Virginia, a little town.
And how many children were in the home?
My mom and dad had 3 girls. My parents divorced. After Louise got married later on in life, she had 3 more children by 2 other different men.
Mm-hmm. You said you all went through the same abuse. And when you say abuse, you're talking about physical abuse or sexual molestation?
No, we all went through sexual molestation.
Okay. But this was not by your parents.
No.
This was by a family member.
By a family member.
When this started for you, how old were you?
After Louise left home is when it really, I have the strong memories. I do remember things happening before that, but I guess I've just pushed them down and blocked them. Because the reason why I didn't think about it until all this happened with Louise, and it's like I can't remember the abuse, but I remember things that happened so I know I was abused. For instance, Louise was really, really protective over me growing up. That's why I was really shocked. I always thought she'd be the perfect mom. So the person that
She's
abused,
8 years older than you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the person that abused us, when we would come in contact with this person, she would push me out of the way if they asked for a hug or anything. And she would always block me and him. I remember when there was fights in the home between my parents, she would bury my face in her chest and cover my ears. She was very protective. Louise was the perfect sister. You know, she was so loving and caring and protective, and she was very strong-willed. When it came to me, I was her baby.
Now, David is charged with 1 count of a lewd act against a minor. Are you surprised that Louise could potentially allow that when she had been a victim herself?
Normally I would say yes, but because of an incident, no.
What incident?
I ended up staying a summer with them during college, and she allowed David to mess with me. But I was an adult, and I was 19, so I'd never thought he would have done it to a child. I thought it was just like the sister, younger sister, flirty, so I would have never thought that it would have happened to a young child.
When you say she allowed him to mess with you, what do you mean?
Well, he was just real flirty. He would say stuff that was real inappropriate, made me feel very uncomfortable. And then he would come in the shower and watch me shower and make me get out in front of him. He never touched me.
She would actually pick the lock to let him in?
She was the one holding the coat hanger when they come in, so I was always assuming she was opening.
You assumed she picked the lock because she was holding the pick.
Yeah.
So she would stand there and watch him watch you. What did she say?
She would laugh and say that I was embarrassed and I was red from head to toe. They tried to make it off like it was a joke, like they weren't doing anything wrong.
And what children were in the home at the time?
The 4 older ones.
And tell me what you observed in terms of parenting during that time.
They were very strict, but I never saw any type of abuse. The oldest one was not allowed to come out of her, well, none of them really were allowed to come out of the room without permission. They stayed in their room pretty much all the time. I always felt like she didn't want them to talk to me for some reason or really have a relationship with me.
All right, we're going to take a break. Next, when Elizabeth lived with David and Louise, she noticed some bizarre interactions with her oldest daughter. We'll tell you about that after the break.
Judge Emma Smith gave the order. Neither one will have any contact of any kind with her 13 children.
You must not try to or actually get their addresses or locations.
The prosecution and the court has made it very clear from day one. They will do everything to protect the identity of the children, even the adults.
Joining us now is CBS News correspondent David Begnaud from New York. He has been covering this story. So, David, can you bring us up to date? What's the latest?
The latest in the case as we know it is that the parents were reportedly thinking about moving to Oklahoma. And there are new allegations regarding the brother of David Turpin, who apparently called Child Protective Services in California and said, hey, I'm interested in adopting the kids. When CPS called him back, he didn't answer. He now has an attorney who's fielding his calls. This brother apparently runs a Christian college in the Midwest. Prosecutors and the police want to talk to the brother, not necessarily about whether he wants to adopt the kids, but whether or not he knew of the alleged abuse.
Well, I understand that when the children were rescued, they have not asked about their parents at all. Is that your understanding?
That is correct. Our source within, very close to the investigation, has told us the kids were pale, skittish, scared, didn't really make eye contact when they first got to the Child Protective Services office, and never asked to see their parents. Now, you have to remember, the kids were split up. So the adults went to one hospital, the younger kids went to another hospital. And in fact, we're told that very soon, within the next few days, the kids are going to be sent to live in foster care. And what the CPS officials have done is actually go to a judge and get an order that basically gives them custody over the adults. And that's because officials say that the adults have the mentality of children and really aren't able to care for themselves. So the adult children are going to go to one home, and the minor children will actually be split. Half will go to one home, the other half will go to another.
David, there's been some talk about dressing all the children alike had a particular purpose or a strategy behind it. Do you know about that, and what was that strategy?
So there's a relative who claims that Louise ended up telling people that she would dress the kids alike because she was trying to get them ready for a reality show. Other than that, we've not heard.
Do you get the sense, or have you had any intelligence at all about whether the parents get the gravity of what they're charged with here?
The sheriff's officials say when they went to the door, went in, there was at least one child who was actually chained when they entered the house. And that in the course of interviewing the parents, Louise was just, she didn't understand. She didn't get why they were asking her about the condition of her kids.
Well, Elizabeth, who's running that house? Is she running that house, or is David running that house?
That's a hard question, but I can tell you when I lived there, Louise made all the decisions. But it was like David would stand back and watch with his arms folded all the time, and they were right on top of each other all the time. And then after she would make a decision, they'd make eye contact, and she'd say, "Right, David?" And David would either say, "Right," or he'd say, "Well." But Louise pretty much made all the decisions at that time. Now, that was in 1996.
She was a controlling personality.
Even as a child, it was like, you know, I can't believe Mommy and Daddy told me not to do that. I mean, it was like she'd do it or die. It was kind of like the whole thing about she couldn't get married, so she ran off. I mean, Louise did what she wanted to do.
She even made the oldest ask permission to eat before she could eat.
Yes. She would call them down for dinner, and usually one at a time, and she would have the plate sitting on the table. And I remember particularly with the older child, the oldest, she was always harder on her for some reason than the other children. And they would make eye contact. She would sometimes grab her hand, and they would smile between each other. And then she would say, "Okay, sit down." And then she would literally just sit there, remember, with her little arms like this, waiting for permission to eat. And then she would tell her, "Okay, you can eat." She would eat, and then she would tell her, she would sit there, and she would ask her if she was done, and she would say yes. I mean, it was like a routine every meal. And then she would say, "Okay, get up." And then she'd get up. Again, Louise would take her by the hands, look at her, smile. It was like a secret code, and then she would send her back to her room.
Yeah, well. David, thank you so much. We'll continue to stay in touch and follow this case right along with you. We appreciate your time today. Coming up, Elizabeth insists her family begged to see David and Louise's children, and they had no idea what was allegedly happening to them behind closed doors. What she wants her nieces and nephews to know next.
Let me break it down, and the terms are not so pretty. These children have been lying in urine and feces for years, all the way back to their Fort Worth home. Imagine the toll that takes on their skin, like little babies with diaper rash. There are open wounds, horrible rashes that have only been exacerbated by the use of chains, padlocks, and restraints.
Elizabeth, if I can go back to the time that you spent in their home in Fort Worth, it seems like you were seeing the early stages of this really controlling and confining behavior.
Yes.
These children stayed in their rooms most of the time and only came out when they had permission. You had the sense that she did not want them interacting with you and stayed very close by to monitor this?
Well, that's what she told me. She said that our beliefs were different. She didn't want me rubbing off on them.
So who was in charge of the rules and punishing the kids? If they got in trouble or something happened, was it David or Louise?
It was usually Louise would tell David to punish the children.
Okay, she would direct it?
Yes.
Now, at the time that he picked her up at school, took her away, and married her, she was 16.
Yes.
And he was how old?
He was 23.
Okay. So she is 7 years his junior. Did you ever see any of the children run and jump up in either of their laps and cuddle with them, or?
No.
Just never happened?
Mm-mm. I used to always think that was strange too, but like again, I was a 19-year-old kid, so I just thought, why say anything? I mean, what do I have to offer? I'm not a parent. And
did David have a temper?
David did have a temper when things went out of his way, but Louise did too.
What would set them off?
David would get set off if Louise did something he didn't like. He would get really mad. For instance, when I lived there, if she wanted to do something with me that he didn't want her to do with me, and she pursued it, she knew not to do it because he would just flip. So it was like he didn't want us doing anything together without him.
Well, coming up, police say the Turbins started tying their children up with ropes and then escalated to using chains and padlocks in their homemade prison. So when did this alleged torture begin? A childhood friend of the Turpin children is here in an exclusive interview next.
Neighbors say they only saw the children a couple of times, once looking for food in trash cans and another time landscaping the yard at night.
The older kids, I thought they were like 12 because they looked so malnourished, so pale. So because of that, I thought that they were much younger than what they were.
The kids were not sociable at all. Like, they were like, didn't want to look at people, no eye contact with society.
Years of alleged abuse and nobody heard anything.
Sad to say, no.
So horrible. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. It's so sad.
Those were some current neighbors of what's being called the House of Horrors in Perris, California. David and Louise Turpin were arrested and charged with torture, false imprisonment, and abuse after their daughter reportedly jumped through a window and used a disabled cell phone she stole from the home to call 911. Authorities claim the abuse of these children started more than a decade ago when the family lived in Texas. Joining us in an exclusive interview along with her mom Shelley is Ashley Vineyard. Now, Ashley says she was friends with the oldest Turpin children, Jennifer, Joss, and Jessica, when she lived across the street from their home in Texas. And thank you both for being here. What did you see in Texas, and are you shocked at what you're hearing now?
I want to say that I'm shocked by what I'm hearing, but at the same time, it kind of all adds up when you're looking back.
Which children were you friends with?
Jennifer, Jessica, and Josh.
Were they allowed to come out a lot or a little?
The only time I ever saw them was in the late afternoons after I got home from school and into the early evening. And sometimes you could hear them outside late at night.
Were they friendly kids? They have a sense of humor? Were they
were
quiet?
really friendly to me,
Yeah.
but anytime that we were around my mom, if we were walking past the house, my mom was outside, they were really quiet. Like they didn't want to talk a whole lot.
Did you ask their names once?
Yes, I introduced myself, told them, and they seemed kind of freaked out, so I'm trying to talk to them, calm them down. And I asked their names, and the older girl, she was like, well, we're not really allowed to tell anyone our names, but if you pay attention to what we're saying, maybe you could figure our names out. And then one of the younger girls turned around to her and was going, no, don't, and her eyes were huge, and she looked terrified. And I remember looking at the older girl and going, wow, look at you. You got such little tiny petite arms. And she kind of looked like, like get back. And so I felt bad. I backed away from her, at that time.
One time I came over and it was probably a little bit earlier in the day than whenever I usually go and try to play with them. And I knocked on the door and Louise came to the door and she said that the kids couldn't come outside to play with me. And, I was really young, so I kind of felt a little rebuffed by it. So I left and I came back the next day and I knocked on the door and I knocked and I knocked and I knocked and nobody ever answered. And right next to the door, there's this really big window and I could see there was a toddler and a playpen there. And anytime that I came over after that, trying to knock on the door and get the kids to come outside to play, either the curtain would be open or shut, and you could see that baby or hear the baby in the playpen right there. But it was like nobody else was there.
Elizabeth, one of the things that I've wondered about here, because I've sadly dealt with situations to one degree or another like this before, where a mother has the children and then begins to resent the children once she has them. Over disciplines the children, over restricts the children, confines the children in different ways. And the dynamic has been, in more than one occasion, where the mother has become jealous of the children. Like she has the children and then the children take up time, they take up money, they are loved by the husband, they take a lot of things away from an unhealthy and insecure mother, and she begins to resent them and therefore restricts them in some way, and they stay in their rooms, they can't come out. they're really confined in this way. Is it possible that Louise had that reaction to these children?
She didn't really stay in contact with us at all, so I really can't answer that, but it's possible, I guess, you know.
Did they ever talk to you about planning to have so many children?
Yes, growing up, Louise always said she wanted 12 children. She used to tell my parents that, my grandmother used to talk about it.
Particularly with teenagers, I've seen teenagers leave home for two reasons. They're either leaving to get away from home or they're leaving to get to someone else. Mm-hmm. Do you think she was running to David or away from home?
She was running away from home. I know that for a fact.
She was running away from home.
Yeah, David was never her type. He was just her way of getting away. He was her rescue.
So he wasn't Mr. Right, he was Mr. Right now.
Right.
He was her ticket away from home.
Right.
What about home did she want to get away from so badly?
The sexual abuse. She wanted to get away from hearing Mommy and Daddy fight all the time. She just wanted to get away. She wanted to forget everything and leave everything behind her.
Okay. Ashley says the Turpins disappeared from their home in Texas without a trace. And once they left, she and her mom went to check out the trailer where they had been living for years. What they saw inside will shock you. We'll be right back. When police arrived at the Turpin home, they say they found filthy conditions. And according to neighbors, these children had been surviving like this for years, even when they lived in Texas. Now, you guys were close proximity-wise to them in Texas, and you went to check things out because they just disappeared, right? Mm-hmm. And when you went to check it out, what did you find?
Oh, it was so nasty on the inside. I remember they had moved out of the brick house and they had put a double wide on the property. So they actually had two homes on that property in Rio Vista.
One they had trashed and the other
they had trashed the brick house so bad that they couldn't live in it. They had pulled carpet out of it. The living room area had newspapers and animal cages and just filth. The carpet was ripped up. It was plywood that was covered in filth. There was trash everywhere. Bedrooms set up like barracks with bunk beds. My dad said he remembers seeing locks on cabinets and on doors and on closets.
The refrigerator.
Padlocks on the refrigerator. There was ropes on the
beds.
When you say ropes on the bed, tell me what you mean.
Tied it like the head or footboard, and I had no idea what I was looking at. I was like, wow, I wouldn't let my child play with ropes on their bed. I would be afraid they'd hurt themselves. That's how naive I was to what I was seeing. Who would
think?
You're right.
That your mind doesn't go there, right?
You don't want to think the worst.
You want your neighbors to be good people. You don't think that they're over there abusing their children.
Did you ever see any of the children trying to get away from the house?
I did, yes.
What did you see?
I saw what I believe was Jennifer coming out of the woods and coming up the road towards where I would be taking the children to school. And a lady coming the other way stopped and picked her up as I was going. And that's where, from the neighbors, I was told that she had been asking, how do I get a job? How do I get a car? How do I get an apartment? And so the lady started asking her questions in return, like, what's your name? She didn't want to give her name. Do you know your birthday or how old you are? And she didn't know her birthday, and I don't think she knew how old she was. And did she know who the president was? And the answer was no to that. And we were told at that time that the police had been involved and that CPS had been involved, and this was just hearsay from a neighbor.
All right, next, I wish there weren't, but sadly there are others who have experienced horror in their lives. One of them has become a very good friend of mine. I'm talking about survivor Michelle Knight. Michelle was chained up, tortured, and held captive in Cleveland's infamous House of Horrors. She joins us in an exclusive interview after the break.
One man is now being held responsible for more than a decade of horror. A Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight are all safe and sound tonight.
Authorities say the victims spent much of their captivity bound, either in the basement or on the second floor of Castro's house.
Is this the pole he had you chained to? So these heavy, rusty, filthy things were around your neck and your waist.
Yeah. I was basically chained to the bed. I only had this much chain space, so I couldn't reach a window or anything.
Were you starved to the point that it was becoming painful?
It was unbearable.
I want to talk about the day you escaped.
We found them. We found them.
What was the first thing you wanted to do?
I wanted to kiss the ground that I was walking on and thank God for letting me get out of that hellhole.
Well, joining us now via satellite is Michelle Knight. Michelle, it is so good to see you.
Hello, it's good to see you too.
So, Michelle, what was your first reaction when you heard this horrific story?
I started having flashbacks of what happened to me. I had to take myself and literally just take a moment and stop watching TV.
Yeah, I can well understand. What do you think will be the hardest part of their recovery?
Just being able to be in society and living as a normal person. It's going to be a lot of hard work, and they're going to need a lot of support.
What is going through their minds right now?
They're scared. They're alone.
How brave did the little girl who jumped out of that window have to be to do what she did and put it all on the line?
I know her heart was beating 5 miles a minute. I know she was scared. I know she didn't know what was going to happen once she walked out that door. I know that her heart fell to the floor.
Do you think it might be hard for them to separate their alleged abusers from other adults in their life?
Yes. It's going to take them a minute for them to trust anybody again. It's going to take a lot of work. I know they're definitely going to have a difficult time separating away from their parents because that's all they know.
So what should their family, who does love them, who feels horrible about what's happened to them, what should they say or do to gain their trust? What do they need to hear from those people now?
All they need to hear is that they love them, they care, and they're willing to take the time and the space for them to heal. And know that if you push, they will pull away.
Elizabeth, what do you say to your nieces and nephews if they're watching this right now?
I want to tell them that for years I tried to talk to them. We tried to visit, and I want them to know that I love them, and I hope to see them soon.
Michelle, there may be a time that you'll have an opportunity to talk to some of these children and share some of your experiences with them, and I know you would be willing to do that.
Yes, I would.
I told you this before when we met and spent so much time together, but you are one of the most courageous people I have ever met. You changed my life, and you changed a lot of lives at the Dr. Phil family here, and we are so proud of you.
Thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. All right, coming up, what's next for these survivors? We've spoken to Child Protective Services. We'll let you know how they're doing and what is next on their journey to healing. We'll be right back. We've been talking about the unthinkable story of 13 children who have been rescued after allegedly being held captive by their parents. Joining us is Dr. Charles Sophie, who is a board-certified psychiatrist in 3 clinical specialties, as well as being the medical director of the DCFS here in Los Angeles, which is the largest agency in the entire country. You've spoken to the Child Protective Services director handling the children. What do we know about their treatment, their progress so far?
They have them in different hospitals based on their age.
Right.
And they're safe, they're together. They try to keep sibling groups together because they're being ripped away from, believe it or not, the people they love. And
Right.
so trying to keep them and then get them assessed, both physically and mentally.
And what people sometimes don't realize is, to the children, these parents are love objects to them. They look up to them, they love these parents, And so many of these children right now might be missing their mother and father, who they look at as their leaders, as their protectors at this point.
Absolutely, and that's one of the biggest problems we have in any of the foster care situations, because no matter what we say to a child or tell them how bad their parents were, or they see how bad and dangerous their parents are, they love them and want them.
So what happened here? How did the system fail and no one knew about these children for so many years? Is there something that could have or should have been done to have rescued these children sooner?
The thing that people should be doing is you can call the police and get a welfare check and ask them, just go check on this family. I'm not sure everything's okay. You're not alleging any abuse or neglect, but you're saying something doesn't seem right. And you can do that anytime, and that will trigger CPS if needed.
Everybody is wondering how a parent could do this, who does this, and we're going to be searching for those answers. Do you have a theory here?
Well, I mean, as her sister said today, she was molested herself and was never protected. She never learned how to protect. So she's not going to be able to protect her children. She's not going to know the line of what crosses to abuse.
Look, okay, this is a story obviously we're going to follow. I want to thank all of my guests today for sharing their insights on this and shedding some light on this unthinkable story. David and Louise Turpin have both pled not guilty to multiple counts of torture, abuse, and false imprisonment. So at this point, their allegations, they are each being held on $12 million bond. We're praying for all of these innocent children. We hope they find healing and peace, and that they never have to suffer again. For more information, you can go to drphil.com. Thanks for watching.